Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you for tuning in to Inclusive, the Inquirer webinar series presented by the Philippine Daily Inquirer and Icon Executive Asia. My name is Pat Soyo from Icon Executive Asia, and I will be your host for the live stream event. Inclusive is a series of virtual seminars produced by the Inquirer, spearheaded by the members of the Inquirer's esteemed editorial team. It takes on an inclusive approach to learning. Everyone is encouraged to join the event and participate in the discussion. Conducted via live stream, a chosen subject that is of current concern will be discussed comprehensively during the seminar and will showcase experts on the subject who will share their best practices. Our topic for today is reinforcing pillars, paving the road to recovery. We will be discussing how to chart a path of recovery for the real estate industry. It's definitely an interesting and timely topic that most of us are curious to know about. But before we move forward and to introduce our panel of experts to the viewers, we would like to thank the following sponsors for making this live stream possible: Ortigas Land and Medicard. Now, before I turn this over to our moderators, we have an exclusive offer to all of our viewers. The Philippine Daily Inquirer is offering a 30-day free trial of its digital edition, Inquirer Plus. As you can now see in your screen, we are flashing the QR code for you to get more details on how to avail of this exclusive offer. Again, the Philippine Daily Inquirer is offering a 30-day free trial of its digital edition, Inquirer Plus. As you can see in the screen, there's a QR code, so snap a shot of it, and then it will be directed to a page for you to easily avail of it. Now, I'll be turning this over to our business moderator for today's webinar, Tech Samaniego. Tech, good afternoon.
Good afternoon and thank you, Pat. Welcome again, everyone, to all our viewers. We are hoping to have a really interesting and insightful discussion today. Real estate, regarded to be one of the prime movers of the Philippine economy, it has undoubtedly gained traction and solid footing over the last 10 years. World-class architectural marvels were built, the tallest skyscrapers were constructed, and the lifestyle of every Filipino has been enhanced and improved as property developers continue to innovate. Instagram-worthy shops and restaurants have become the norm, while homegrown hotel brands continue to flourish through their own distinct brand of service. But the pandemic put a sudden halt to all this. The party, it seemed to many, has come to a stop. What was once considered as a prime economic mover has seen its pillars shaken but not completely destroyed. However, not all hope is lost as the leaders and forces behind this vibrant sector continue to bond together to come up with solutions that could help cushion the blow and allow each pillar of the real estate industry to reestablish its footing and eventually regain its luster. Through this afternoon's forum, we hope to be able to shed light and share what the leaders and players have so far mapped out to pave the road to recovery. And helping me moderate this afternoon's webinar is none other than Colliers Philippines Senior Research Manager, Joey Roy Bondo. Joey?
Thank you, Tech. Good afternoon to Inquirer and to our webinar participants. Over the past few weeks, we've had a very comprehensive discussion of office and residential sectors in Metro Manila and even outside of the capital region. But I think there are two major segments of property also that are really driving the economy as well. So we look at leisure, the hotel sector, as well as retail. So I'm really interested in finding out what our stakeholders and speakers have for us this afternoon. Also, I would like to know more about the national government's initiatives in terms of rebuilding the country and the housing sector after this COVID-19 pandemic. So I'm really looking forward to an insightful and very interesting discussion. Hopefully, we can also elicit very interesting questions from our webinar participants for this afternoon.
Thank you, Joey. Okay, so we will now start. I'd like to say welcome and introduce our first panelist. He is the first Secretary of the Department of Human Settlement and Urban Development, a new agency created by virtue of Republic Act number 11201, which was signed into law by President Rodrigo Duterte in February 2019. A retired Major General, Sec. Eduardo del Rosario, served as chairman of the Housing and Urban Development Coordinating Council, or HUDC, for more than 2 years prior to his appointment as the DHSUD Secretary. Again, good afternoon and welcome, Sec. Del Rosario.
Good afternoon, Tech and Joey. And of course, I would like to greet my co-panelists, Ma'am Rose and Ma'am Cleo, and to all our viewers and listeners. First of all, I would like to express my gratitude for having been invited to this webinar. And I think this is a very good medium in telling the public about the concerns of the housing industry. As you have stated, the department was created by virtue of Republic Act 11201. And today, my department, the Department of Human Settlements and Urban Development, is the youngest department in the executive. The Republic Act was signed by our president just last year, February 14 to be exact. Makita natin araw ng puso na ito ay napirmahan ng ating presidente, and we consider this as a gift by our president to 81% of Filipino families who wish to have a house of their own. And with that creation, the department now is the primary agency that will manage housing, human settlements, and urban development, as well as providing planning, policy making, regulatory, coordination, and monitoring. So everything we do is actually mandated by Republic Act 11201. Now, what is the game plan of the housing sector in as far as the COVID effects to our society? Actually, our game plan as a department is for us to develop complementary efforts in the implementation of the National Shelter Program. The National Shelter Program has basically three major components: regulations, finance, and production. The interplay of these three major components will give a signal for us to enhance all our activities and objectives. In the regulatory aspect, this is being provided by the department, by our central office, and implemented and observed by our regional offices. The finance aspect is provided by the key shelter agencies as well as production. So it is very important in the policy and in the formulation of our rules and regulations. Our regulations must complement our finance and production efforts. And I think through this, we can say that we can develop synergy in the process. We also launched the Balay Filipino program. Balay is actually an acronym that stands for Building Adequate, Livable, Affordable, and Inclusive Filipino Communities. Our objective is to ensure that once we build houses, it must be adequate, livable, and affordable para yung ating mga kababayan ay hindi na makakuha ng mga housing units na sinasabi nga natin na substandard. And another focus or strategy that we would like to have and focus on is stakeholders engagement, most especially with our partner developers. The government can only produce so much, but with the assistance and support by our partner developers, because of their combined tremendous resources, we could enhance production. That's why we are directly in direct contact and coordinating with them in all our undertakings. In fact, as early as last year, when I was still head of the HUDCC, I created already the technical working group that would look into the existing policies, rules, and regulations, make amendments if necessary, or change the existing rules and policies that is not conducive anymore to the present situation. And we did this in tandem with the partner developers or the private sector. And we intend to continue this engagement on a regular basis. In fact, during this COVID period, they have helped us a lot in the crafting of our department orders, so that the orders that we will be crafting will be aligned also within their capability and function. And likewise, in order to have a plan that would guide us not only on the short-term, mid-term plan, we are now crafting the 20-year strategic plan for housing. And this will now serve as the Bible in the housing sector, with a strategic plan to be undertaken by the department and the housing sector in general.
Thank you so much, Sec. That was such an insightful introduction from you. And now may we please welcome our next panelist. Our next panelist is actually the re-elected president of the Philippine Retailers Association, the national organization of retailers and suppliers in the country. Comprised of more than 400 companies, Ms. Rosemario Bosch Ong is also the SEVP COO of Wilcon Depot, the leading home improvement and construction supply retailer in the country today. She brings to the table more than 3 decades of experience, holistic experience in marketing, administration, and operations, during which she created aggressive strategies that drove revenues and delivered consistent growth by growing the business and market share of Wilcon Depot. Again, let's all welcome Ms. Rose Bosch Ong.
Alora, among others. As our members also are the top technology companies such as HP, Epson, Microsoft, and we are about 400 companies. We serve as the voice of retail, the pulse and the voice of the retail industry. We have been in the forefront for major issues and concerns that impact the retail industry, especially now in this pandemic. We represent the retail sector in various government meetings and hearings on bills and issues that affect our industry. As a consumer-driven economy, consumption definitely fuels growth. So basically, when people buy, it stimulates all industries. Whether you buy food, you buy clothes, you buy home improvement materials, it stimulates agriculture, it stimulates manufacturing, and even construction. However, with the restrictions and job loss we experience because of this pandemic, we see that the retail industry was being adversely affected. While essentials like food and health supplies will continue to enjoy growth, but the many non-essential, such as entertainment, apparel, and shoes, suffered from this restriction. And as we navigate the new normal, we see due to the pandemic, consumers heightened health awareness and even awareness of safety. So there will be more spending on and more keeping and spending on healthy or eating healthy and following precautionary or safety measures. And retailers need to rethink at this time, how they can help people manage their mental health. We're not just here to sell, but basically during their worrying times. So instead of showing products to them, it is really important to be the brand that will be there for them and to offer solutions and support. Of course, we're still facing a lot of challenges given that we are not yet in that better normal as what we are expecting as we transition from different levels of community quarantine. Hopefully, this is the call for all retailers to reinvent themselves, to be more innovative, and to evolve as an industry. And I think that's all. And thank you very much for having me.
Okay, thank you, Ms. Rose. I think that's a very interesting intro for the retail sector in the Philippines. And later on, we'll be also equally interested to find out how retailers in the Philippines are adjusting to the new normal. But before we discuss that, let me first introduce our third panelist. She's the General Group Manager of Megaworld Hotels, the largest operator of wholly Filipino-owned hotel brands. Prior to joining Megaworld, Ms. Cleofe Albiso was the first general manager of Courtyard by Marriott Iloilo, which was the first international hotel to open in Western Visayas. She also made history as the first female general manager of a Marriott property here in the Philippines. Welcome, Ms. Cleo.
Hi, Joey. Good afternoon. Good afternoon, Tech. And good afternoon to my fellow speakers, Honorable Secretary Eduardo del Rosario and Ms. Rosemario Ong. I, of course, want to greet our participants in this inclusive Inquirer webinar series. Hello to you all. I hope we're all doing well despite the 3 months quarantine. It's very timely that we celebrated our 122nd Independence Day celebration yesterday. And I speak here with so much Filipino pride, talking of the largest developer and the 100% Filipino-owned hotel, which is Megaworld Hotels, as a homegrown hotel chain here in the Philippines. We have about 3,900 room keys inventory, and that's a portfolio of 10 hotels spread out throughout the developments of Megaworld Corporation. We have our brands Savoy Hotel, which we have 3 hotels of. We have Savoy Hotel Manila. We have a beautiful Savoy Hotel in Boracay, New Coast. And of course, our newly opened Savoy Hotel in Mactan, New Town. Another brand of the Megaworld Hotels is the Belmont Hotel. We have 1 in Manila and of course in Boracay again. And 2 are under construction, which did also have quite a halt, as mentioned by our previous speakers, during the quarantine, but of course it's underway, and that's in Iloilo and Mactan as well. And we also have our homegrown favorite brand who have been with us for 2 decades, the Richmond Hotel Group, and that's in Eastwood, Ortigas, and Iloilo. And if you have not been to our hole in the wall in the heart of Binondo, you have to try when all the restrictions and limitations are lifted. We all have to see Hotel Lucky Chinatown. And we are also proud of our property in Tagaytay, which is a drivable distance for all of us here in Manila for all your staycations. And that's Twin Lakes Hotel. And you may not believe we are still opening with a target of opening sometime in December, or if construction pans out slower, given all the challenges for our works, it might be able to open in the first week of 2021. And that's Kingsport Hotel Manila. It might be a question to everybody, Joey, right? Like in a crisis like this, and we're still continuing all these construction projects and expanding our portfolio. And this is all because we have a goal of putting up 7,500 room keys in the next 3 to 4 years. So we're very excited. There's a whole lot of activities and changes in our industry. And the priority for now will be the safety reassurance. It's so unexpected that we're going through this in the front of hospitality. Like, we were all very excited to always share that the warmth of the greetings would have to be there, but now we all have to be wearing masks. We did have a quick discussion of this with Ms. Rose earlier, that the way to welcome people without having to show your warm smile would have to be in different forms, like we are taught by DOT in the Mabuhay mabuhay gesture when you put your hand on your chest and have a little bit of bow is our way to say hi and welcome. And with all the sanitation protocols that the IATF is putting up for all hotels and accommodation facilities to follow, we're putting all that in Megaworld Hotels. But the other aspect of this crisis that we're also excited about is how we've transitioned to the creativity of opening new services and products that we've never done before, like how we're doing our delivery of F&B. We bring right to your doorsteps your favorite signature Megaworld Hotels dishes. So please check that out. And I think a lot of our hotels are doing that. Please patronize your hotels and your favorite restaurants by ordering online as well. And if you will allow me to share, there's two programs that is strengthening our online infrastructure. And one, when we have our on-the-job training for students. Now it's not anymore a physical training, but on the web training. And the other program that we are excited about is our virtual event management service, which is going to be open in the next couple of weeks, where we help organizations do their Zoom and online meetings, and we coordinate with the participants. A lot of our pharmaceuticals are actually getting this service already, and we deliver the food, gourmet food, right to the homes and offices of all their attendees. And above all, it's really our online platform that we're excited about, transitioning to contactless facilities where we can do online booking, online check-ins and checkouts, F&B ordering, and of course there's a chat facility for Megaworld Hotels' new baby project, which is our e-concierge, and a whole lot more. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Ms. Cleo. Thank you to all our panelists. Okay, I'd like to greet everyone again a pleasant afternoon and welcome to our latest webinar titled Reinforcing Pillars, Paving the Road to Recovery. We have for you today, as recently introduced, a roster of panelists who will share with us their insights, best practices, and recommendations on how the Philippine real estate industry can chart a better and more effective recovery plan that will allow it to adapt and evolve amid the pandemic. This time, however, we want to hear the specific steps, concrete action measures that will allow the sector to adapt and evolve even beyond the pandemic. So let's get down to the discussion and ask our panelists. We would like to inform everyone that this is going to be a free-flowing discussion, so you can add your comments and replies to the questions. And to our viewers, may we invite everyone to please send their questions via the comment box, and we'll try to answer as many as we can. Okay, we are all aware by now of how massive the blow being dealt by this pandemic on our economy and our respective businesses. But for Sec del Rosario, what do you think were the most significant changes that we have seen so far? Has the pandemic in any way affected the housing sector?
Well, definitely, with the 3-month cessation of everything economically, the construction was on a standstill for almost 3 months, and this caused massive unemployment. We estimated that the workers in the housing industry is about 2 to 3 million. And it is safe to say that 50 to 75% of these workers are now unemployed because of the pandemic. And on the part of the developers, they continue paying their regular employees, and they have to still pay their loans with commercial banks. And the government, so that we can help the general public, we issued a moratorium on housing payment for in-house financing. So the developers are the ones who provide the financing scheme to the buyers. So they were affected also because during the declaration of the ECQ, their buyers paying them directly stop paying during the declaration of the ECQ and 1 month after the lifting of the ECQ. And also to help the general public, the housing sector allowed a 3-month suspension of payment for Pag-ibig members and those who took housing loan takeout from the National Housing Authority, Social Housing Finance Corporation, and National Home Mortgage Finance Corporation. So they did not pay for 3 months, and this cost about 31 billion pesos unremitted to the government through these key shelter agencies. And imagine the impact in the supply chain that was disrupted. In constructing a house, it has 80 related industries, and all those industries were also adversely affected by the pandemic. So it's tremendous, both sides, on the part of the government, on the part of the key players, the stakeholders in this industry, and the general public who are paying for the loans that they had for housing loan and the short-term loans that Pag-ibig Fund is providing. So ganon grabe ang naging impact ng pandemic to the housing industry.
Just a follow-up, would you say that this is by far the worst? I mean, even worse than the global financial crisis or the Asian financial crisis in terms of the problems being dealt with now by the Philippine property sector?
Definitely. Because the impact of the pandemic is not only to one sector. It covers all in the all economic sectors. And just imagine, it's not only Philippines but worldwide. So this is, I think, the worst that may ever happen in the world, and in particular to our country. But I hope with the interventions being undertaken by the government, we can eventually rise up to the occasion.
Okay, so obviously, a lot of sectors were, affected by this COVID-19 pandemic. A lot of stakeholders, in terms of supply and demand for housing, both were really affected. Now, speaking of stakeholders and other players in the property space, of course, one of the sectors that was greatly affected by this pandemic is retail. And I want to ask Ms. Rose here, how has the Philippine retail sector been affected by this COVID-19 pandemic? And would you say that most players that were affected are the micro, small, and medium enterprises only, or were all segments, all retailers affected? Across all segments by this COVID-19 pandemic?
Yeah, thank you. The first 2 months of the year coming from a good, good numbers, no? And then suddenly everything was put to a stop except for some essentials like food and pharmacy. But despite that, no, we face so many challenges also because it's not just a stoppage on the operation of some of the, but basically also there's no transportation. So mobility has been an issue. Everything was disrupted in terms of demand, in terms of supply as well, and logistics, no? Because like during that time, retail, even if we want to still continue serving our customers, we cannot because even if we use the platform of e-commerce, we still cannot because of mobility issues. There's so many restrictions. There's so many, like border restrictions, the curfew and all those restrictions. So basically, it really impacted retail. Employment was really impacted because although some of the big retailers, they still gave salary to the regular employees for as long as I think the ECQ was there. And we all know that Luzon-wide lockdown was really a big hit in the entire economy of the country because it accounts to 65% of our total production. So definitely it hit all of us, whether you're essential, you're non-essential. So when you ask about what's your second question, whether um,
Is it just the MSMEs that were affected, or even the larger retailers were affected also?
we're all in the same storm, but of course we're in different boats. Whether you're MSME, you're a big retailer, we're all taking the hit also. So we're all sacrificing. Like for example, the bigger ones, no, they have to make a lot of sacrifices in terms, and more so with small ones because they operate on very low working capital. So most of them, they cannot afford to give salary to their employees. It's a good thing that the government has this, SAP for those less than 100 employees, companies with less than 100 employees. But I'm sure, you yourself feels, no, how really profound this thing that happened to us, no. It's really very unprecedented because everything was disrupted, even manufacturing. Even if you want to continue, let's say you're an essential, you're a food manufacturer, still you cannot operate because you cannot have, employees come to work. And even those essential retailers, they have to provide transportation, they have to incur additional unplanned costs. They have to provide housing for their employees. And of course, we have to adhere and abide by the expectations of giving a safe and secure environment for our customers and also for our employees. No, so everything, like all aspects of the operations were affected. Capital, working capital was affected because of the unplanned costs. You have to give, like for example, now some of us are required to do testing for our employees, right? So just to ensure that our experience or the retail experience that we're giving to our customers is safe, and that we abide by whatever rules, and of course the different rules and regulations of different LGUs that we need to adhere to. No, so these are contained challenges that we're facing, and hopefully this will pass. And we're expecting that as we progress, there will be heightened demand for some products that some retailers would easily transform into. So yeah, that's basically what we're facing right now.
Okay, thank you, Ms. Rose. I think that's a pretty comprehensive update of what's happening in the retail space. But earlier, I introduced you as part of Welcome, and I want to put you on the spot in your business as well. Have you seen a pent up demand? Because of course, you're in the business of furnishing, repairing your houses, and a lot of people are now working from home. And of course, they want a good background, a good house now. So, have you seen this pent up demand, at least from your business?
Actually, when the ECQ was, announced, Luzon-wide ECQ, so that's 45, I would say, no, 85%. That's 44 stores, total of 44 stores that we have to close, which is 85% of our business. Although we're still operating our Visayas and Mindanao, but then as the weeks go by, we have to close them. And then we have to reopen in April for some Visayas and Mindanao. And then we have to reopen when GCQ was announced here in Metro Manila. So it was really a challenge for all of us, especially Wilcon. We're in the home improvement. We consider our sector as essential. We were surprised that Sec del Rosario, I hope you can help me with this. No, we were surprised that we were not exempted. We've been getting requests, a lot of calls from customers. Can you imagine if a factory or let's say a house, one of their, let's say, electric breaker back down or their plumbing system back down, can you imagine that if you do not open hardware or home improvement, no? So that time we were getting a lot of requests from customers and even from the government units, different government units because they need to build up quarantine facilities, right? So they need to extend a portion of the, like say, the hospital or a portion. They need to build a portion of the LGU facility. So we tried to open, and then we came up with a very creative idea of serving our customers the contactless, just like what Cleo mentioned. So what we did is we introduced, because we cannot operate our online platform, we cannot do an end-to-end fulfillment because of the restrictions, because of the mobility issues and all this, no? So we created the browse, call, and collect, wherein the customer in the comfort of their homes browse items, and then they call and then we serve them through this, no? So we cannot deliver, so they have to pick it up, no? So on your question about pent-up demand, definitely we were very encouraged. We find it really promising when we opened on the first day that the ECQ was lifted in Metro Manila. It was May 16, and we did not anticipate that people will flood our stores, challenge for us because we have to operate on 50% workforce, and in fact because of the issue on mobility again, so we have to transport some of our employees, so we were operating like 35 to 40% workforce, and it was a challenge because customers flooded the stores. Maybe during the 2.5 or almost 3 months confinement, they were able to memorize every corner of their houses and be given the wear and tear of housing, the wear and tear of house. And that also, most of us, we do not spend so much time in the house pre-ECQ. We only stay there for, let's say, to rest or to relax, but basically we don't spend the whole day there. And given the wear and tear, you have to change a lot of, your air condition. That's why we see a pent-up demand for items that are not our core, because, Wilcon, we are, our core products are really tiles, and this really compensate, no, because when they lifted the ECQ and construction still suspended, construction still not. So we were very worried. We said our core tiles, plumbing, and sanitary, where can we meet the demand? Because definitely the workers cannot go to work. I mean, the construction workers cannot continue working, and then construction cannot continue. So we were surprised that consumers are looking for appliances, they're looking for home improvement, they're looking for, converting their space into an office, they're asking for office furniture on how to, set up their space into an office at New Year. So basically, we were happy. I hope we can sustain this, and then hopefully when construction is allowed already, when GCQ will be lifted or we transition into MGCQ, we hope that, we can serve our customers better.
Okay, that was such a lot. That was actually a lot to absorb, but I think no one was spared. One thing is clear: no one was spared. But I think the most challenging part lies on our next speaker. My question, Ms. Claire, because at least retail is okay, housing will always be there. The need for housing, the need for condo developments will always be there. But now let me ask Ms. Cleo. Ms. Cleo, how affected is the hospitality sector? And in the case of hotels, how massive was the impact of this pandemic? Is a recovery plan even possible right now? I mean, over the short term? Or do you think it will take longer than expected?
Like, I honestly got excited with the response of Ms. Rose. That recovery for retail side is like, wow, we wish we had that. It's actually an understatement if we say our industry is shaken. The truth is our industry experienced a tailspin. And that's the truth of it. On the front of revenue and on the front of how we do things, that's where the impact is really felt. So you can just imagine all our flights have been restricted. flights are not available. So we do not expect guests coming from outside of the country, and even the local travelers are not available. So this also has a great impact on our corporate accounts. We used to have a bulk contribution to all our revenue for rooms and also for their meetings, because our MICE is not available. You don't have meetings, you don't have conventions to respond to the requirement of social distancing and all these things. But on the front also of how we execute things, like I mentioned earlier, you can't imagine coming into a front office with an acrylic barrier and your front desk officer, which I'm sure everybody always looks forward to seeing, right? Our beauteous people in the front office and the front desk, now with masks and all the PPEs. Well, these things are the bigger visible impacts on the hotel's front. On the question of how soon are we going to recover, we are all in prayers that that's going to be so soon. But we have to consider that the contribution of the tourism industry in the Philippines in the Philippine economy is 12.7%. And that's huge, that's substantial, right? And that's your direct gross value added to the GDP of the Philippines. So we all have to also look at fixing and helping recover this tourism industry, because it contributes a lot to Philippine economy. And we all know that tourism also boosts and opens a lot of economic opportunities. We know that not only does it increase your foreign currency receipts, but it also does open a lot of job opportunities. There are a lot of tourism primary sectors that we know hires people, not only on the lodging, not only on the accommodation, there's also amusement and entertainment, right? There's transportation. And of course, there's also retail trade. When there's a convention, we know that all these restaurants are filled up, all the pasalubong centers are gaining higher sales. And I think it's safe to say that a region that has very good tourism always thrives, and economy is also always good. That's a simple equation. And given those statistics, I think we all know that the government will have to really collaborate so that the recovery is fast. And you've seen in the past few months how the private sector, with all the organizations for all tourism industries and sectors, really collaborate on ways of uplifting the spirits of our employees. We know there's so much job fears, like the security of our jobs is not there. We don't know how long our hotels are going to be open. But now is also the time to be happy where we are when our ownership, our corporations take care of us and think of our people. There might be a little lull on some leaves without pay for some employees, especially to the smaller hotels. But we all know that the market is going to recover, and we are very positive, and that's the rally that we all say to our associates. There's so much hope. In fact, I have to say, I'll make mention of this. Last week, we had a webinar dedicated to all our students, because we all know that in the ecosystem of a hotel, there's also the OJTs, and they are the energy, they're the young blood that we hire. So we were thinking, how about this sector as well? Who's taking care of their emotions? Am I going to have to shift? Is this the time to change career, change gear? But then again, we assured them that after all these crises is crossed, there's so much to look forward for tourism in the Philippines.
I do believe so, given that you're also opening another hotel this year, ba, ma'am? Am I right?
We're supposed to open in September, Tech, but given the halt of construction, we have to move a little bit and give a little bit of leeway for all the construction to be completed.
In fact, I think we are slowly seeing the recovery because Wilcon also just opened yesterday their second
Yeah.
branch in Bulacan, in San Jose del Monte. Now, I think the bigger challenge lies on our housing sector. So, Joey, parang meron kang question for Sec kanina.
Yes, I have. Of course, we've already heard our, experts saying there, how are they going to cope with all these changing landscape. But I also want to ask Secretary Del Rosario, now that we're seeing this changing landscape in the property space, what is your game plan? I mean, what specific measures should be implemented to enable the industry, the housing sector overall, to bounce back? I mean, the Duterte administration has its own, 10-point socioeconomic program. Perhaps you may want to share a few points about your specific housing master plan for the country.
Okay, thank you, Joey. The government is focusing on two fronts. First, the public, and of course, those in the industry. In addressing the concerns of the general public, as early as March 16, we issued a 3-month moratorium already, wherein all buyers of housing units with Pag-ibig and the key shelter agencies under the department were given a 3-month moratorium on their monthly amortization. And it started March 16 until June 15. Unlike in the commercial banks, the moratorium or the suspension of payment for 3 months will be paid immediately after on a staggered basis. But for us in government, the payment of this 3-month suspension will be made at the end of their amortization period. So if their amortization is 10 years, at the end of their payment on the 10th year, it will be extended for 3 months to compensate for their suspension for this 3-month period. So that would mean helping the general public. And this amounted to about 31 billion pesos, and about 5.5 million member beneficiaries were given this leeway. So yun ang immediately ginawa na natin, and we foresee that 3 months would be the more appropriate period for the moratorium. And likewise, in order to help the industry, we had this stimulus package of 10 billion pesos being extended by Pag-ibig Fund through our house construction financing line, wherein a developer who would like to get immediate assistance as stopgap measure, 70% of their total project cost. If they have a 100 million project cost, they can loan as high as 70 million at a very low interest rate of 6% per annum. If, for instance, they will just use it for 6 months, so it would mean that their interest rate will be 3% only for that 6-month period. So that the construction will not stop and continue by providing that stopgap measure of assisting them through this house construction financing line by Pag-ibig Fund. And likewise, we have extended the project completion timeline. Yung mga developers natin, as incorporated in the contract, they have a timeline that if they will not be able to meet that timeline, they will incur penalties or fees. So what we did was to extend this by 6 months to 1 year. All they have to do is to tell us that we cannot complete and meet the deadline because of the pandemic, and we can extend it from 6 months to 1 year. And also, we are fast-tracking the permitting process. This is a big problem on the part of our developers, the permitting being taken from the regulatory agencies, both national and local agencies. We encourage now online processing of documents and submissions. So this will fast-track, and we have removed redundant requirements. I asked my staff to ensure that we help our developers to immediately go forward while because the waiting period is consuming so much of their resources, and the longer they construct or complete their projects, housing projects, the longer that they will pay interest rates to the commercial banks. And we would like to champion ease of doing business. We do not like anymore to hear that a certain developer will take so much months, 6 months, or even 1 year before their license to sell is being given and that sort. So we will observe the ease of doing business. The maximum 20-day period, we will observe that. Otherwise, on the 21st day, it becomes approved already. But I have directed also my regional offices not to get or receive documents which are not complete. So it must be complete documentation because the ease of doing business of 10 periods for our regional offices and 10 days for us will now commence once they have received complete documentation.
Thank you.
And likewise, yes.
That's such
likewise, we have
the one that the one that you mentioned lang about our developers and the speeding of a process in terms of issuing the LTS. I think that is really such a welcome news for our developers.
Big help.
Yes. Alam mo, very extensive yung engagement ko dito sa mga major developers like DHSUD, OSDAP, Creva, and REA. We continuously engagement almost once a week. We have a Zoom conference with them para continuous yung aming engagement at matulungan namin sila na ma-fast track yung proseso na ito. And likewise, for our brokers and real estate agents registration, it should be renewed this coming November. We had it extended to March of 2021. So, in-extend natin para not this time, they can renew their registration by March of 2021. And of course, yung nasabi ko kanina, yung continuous engagement, almost weekly, nag-engage kami sa leadership ng major developers in our country. So in that way, we can assure them that we are here to serve with them so that we can deliver more.
Thank you, Sec, for that. Medyo maraming good news yan, Sec, for our developers and brokers. Now, ang next question ko po ay para kay Ms. Rose Ong, no? Ma'am, we've heard the plans of our dear Secretary for the housing sector. Ma'am, sa case ng retail, what are the parang plans that you've so far mapped out to help even the small retailers recover? And so far, do you think this pandemic will really alter the retail landscape? Are we now really seeing a shift from bricks to clicks? Or will built retail establishments continue to flourish in the Philippine setting, given that we are very experiential ang mga Pinoy po?
It's really very encouraging, the programs of the government, the budget that they gave for the stimulus package that they gave, not only for retail, but basically for all sectors, for all industries. And we just, one of our wish list lang is hopefully they can fast track the transmission of the cash help or the cash loans that they're going to give so that it will reach especially those heavily impacted like the retail sector. We all know that, this SMEs, they're really hardly hit. They have very low or very little working capital. They only operate on a daily, on a hand-to-mouth basis, So that's really very, we're looking forward to that it reach all of us. And that, of course, we're like, I mentioned earlier, I guess, we are in touch with the government, different government agencies, In fact, they consult us, we attend meetings, with regards to, let's say, legislation, like we are staunch also of the CREATE, That's one thing that definitely will help the big and even the small retailers, when they bring down the corporate tax to 25%. For this year, for the first year, and definitely the savings of 5%, they will they will infuse it in other means like increase in capitalization and all this, no? So yeah, we're looking forward to those. We're looking forward, and of course, we're also looking forward to the interest in loans that they can give to the retailers, no? Especially with like what I mentioned, whether you're big or small, everybody experience a hit in this, no? So unemployment is an issue. A lot of those that cannot still operate, you know, that even if they open the malls, still some retailers they cannot operate because some are having issues on bringing their employees to work, and then some are having issues also that they're not allowed, like other, you know, some non-essential retailers are not allowed. So definitely we're looking forward to things to get back to the normal, no? So on your second question, again, I'm sorry.
Are we really seeing po a shift na from bricks to clicks? Are we ready po for an e-commerce na?
You know, there's this joke nga who's the C that the catalyst for change, no? Is it the CEO, is it the CIO, or the COO? Definitely it's not. Although we are talking about industrial revolution prior to ECQ, prior to this pandemic, you know, that we are in the fourth industrial revolution, that is a call for us to digitize. Some retailers, yes, they're ready, they have the platform. But like what we were discussing earlier, no, basically the nature of Filipinos, they want to experience, you know, they want experiential shopping, they want to go to the mall, they want to, you know, to have comfortable, you know, way of shopping or navigating the store or the mall. Definitely, I think people are always looking for value added. It can be a combination of click and brick, but definitely the brick and mortar store is here to stay. The click will just complement it. I'm sure we all experience, most retailers, you know, because of the mobility issue, the restriction issue, the lack of confidence of people going out, you know, shopping, except for Cleo. She mentioned that she did revenge shopping with the very first time that she went shopping, you know, but still there are some people who are not that confident yet. So that level of confidence of exposing themselves or going out, although as far in fairness, you know, as far as the retailers, the malls, the shopping centers and all retailers are concerned, they're really, you know, following all the protocols, safety measures, ensuring that, you know, it's safe to shop, it's safe for the consumer, and it's safe for their employees, you know. So for, yeah, definitely it will accelerate digitalization. However, it has to be a combination, especially for our sector, which is the home improvement. People still want that sense of touch and look and feel. So we will still continue with our browse, call, and collect. So you browse, you get a look or a feel of the product visually, but then you still want to confirm it. So whether in what form you want to fulfill the service level, whether you want it delivered or pick up, still people need to see the brick and mortar store. They still need to see the actual look, the actual color, and the actual feel of the product, especially in home improvement, especially construction. You know, you want to make sure that the product that you're getting, and people when they build a house, Filipinos, you know, they want it sturdy, they want it stable, and it will last from generation to generation.
So it's actually very good to hear that our panelists are actually mapping out their recovery plan already. While the path may be challenging because it's something that we are not all familiar with, but it's good to hear that from the housing sector, they've already mapped out a plan also for the retail sector. But I think Joey has a few, I mean, question for Miss Rose, for Miss Cleo here.
Yes, well, actually, I have a few for Miss Rose, but I'll ask them later. But let me first ask Miss Cleo, what's your game plan for the hospitality sector? I mean, I'm impressed that, of course, you know your figure. Tourism contributes 12.7% of the country's GDP, and that excludes the other multiplier effects. But what do you think should be put in place by, say, your hotel brand and other hotel brands here in the Philippines? And what kind of government intervention would be necessary to keep your businesses afloat?
Well, I think the DOT has been able to chart out the recovery plan even up until year 2023, and that's really commendable. Our Secretary Berna has been able to put that out in the open, and the hospitality industry is really excited that the government is strongly supporting all the stakeholders so that we will be able to recover the soonest. In a nutshell, I'd like to say that the game plan can be summarized with 3 C's. That's communication, coordination, and collaboration. For easier understanding, well, we have seen on social media on the front of communication how we have time to travel domestically. This is the time to support when we know that traveling to the local district, not just because of the restriction, but because we want to support our own economy. And we know that visiting hotels, when all the restrictions are lifted, when the government mandates that we are allowed to take in leisure business, allow your families to do staycations, because you know you're supporting livelihood for all our hoteliers, for the transportation sector, and also our airlines. And in the front of coordination, I think a coordinated approach will really be key. We see that if the sanitation protocols are present in all our accommodation establishments, then we will be able to strongly convey the message that there is safety reassurance wherever they go, right? And if we all do that, I think it's going to really help us. And on the last C, collaboration, this is where we will badly need all the help from the government. It's very difficult for the private sector to really be able to spring back to business again, especially with the tourism industry. This is where we need all the help from DOT and, of course, the great collaboration from OWA and to be able to host the other segments that are available and are at hand. Also with great collaboration with DOH, so that we are all compliant to the IATF issuances. And what we need to do now when we're able to accomplish all those 3 C's is to encourage ourselves and all the people that are within the ecosystem of the hotel and tourism industry that, you know, we have hope not to give up, because definitely with all these plans charted out already, we can really recover. If not this year, then we look forward to early next year.
Thanks, Miss Cleo. Now, speaking of C's, you mentioned 3 C's. Now, I want to ask another C, conferences. I mean, MICE, how do you intend to revive the MICE segment? I mean, you know, people are not allowed to convene, and not if this lockdown is eased to MCGQ, then probably would only have about 10 people in a conference. So how do you intend to revive that segment of the hospitality?
You know, Joey, Tech knows this. I am very active in the MICE Alliance of Iloilo, and we've been working out on how to strategically position Iloilo as the next premier MICE destination. And this is the same sentiment of all the other regions that were preparing themselves for MICE efficiency and MICE hosting, and now here the pandemic goes and MICE business has to take some steps back. Well, it's not gonna be so soon for MICE business, but what we can do is keep ourselves top of mind by being present online. We continue to prepare what else can we do, because it's going to be a little bit of digital for some time. But there will come a time that the vaccine will be available, the medical breakthrough will be able to help us all get to the normal that we are used to doing, then MICE business will be available. So let's not waste the time by not honing ourselves, because the MICE business, Joey, is a whole gamut of a lot of sectors, a great collaboration between the private and public sector, and all these are great reasons why a region becomes very successful with MICE business. So even in the situation now, that collaboration between the private and public sector is going to be strengthened so that when the time comes that we're ready to say, okay, we're hosting the next Asia Pacific conference of all these pharmaceuticals and all these organizations, we are fully ready and even coming out really better and stronger.
And
Thank
thank you, Ms. Cleo. So I think the really the key word here is synergy and collaboration. If in order for us all to survive. Now we'll take some of the questions from our viewers. I have here one question for Sec del Rosario. It's from Manuel Hermano. Sec del Rosario, due to this pandemic, getting all necessary documents or requirements is relatively slow. Is your department considering to issue provisional LTS while we're consolidating all requirements?
Yes, we are about to complete the guidelines by issuing a department order with regards to the issuance of temporary license.
Okay. And then for Miss Rose, also for Sec, how about the stay-in contractors, workers that are already on board or on site and they want to go home? Once they are back to the project site, are they still subject to a 5-day quarantine?
Yes, because we do not know, because our main concern here is the contamination of the project site. If there are 100, 200 workers who are not exposed and after working 2-3 months, they will go home for a week and return back again, they have to quarantine themselves before they enter the project site because it's too risky. If one will contaminate all the 200 workers, it would mean a complete stoppage in the project site.
Before I turn it over to Joey, Miss Rose, one question here. Are you in favor of the age limit being given for the mall operators? Like 60 and 21 below are not allowed. 60 and above, 21 and below.
Yeah, I really don't know where they got. Probably they're following what other countries are. I don't know what's the science between. Of course, it's obvious that if you're older, you're vulnerable. But there's like in our economy in our country, majority of the top echelons of the different companies, the top management, they're 60 and above, right? So I'm 61 actually. So it really, how they call it, it's really saddens me. Like I cannot go to the parlor now. I haven't had my haircut for 3 months already. So I'm restricted to to go out. I'm even restricted to go to work. Although this webinar or this Zoom meetings, this very efficient, very effective during the time of confinement. But well, we have to follow, yes, like Leo mentioned, until there's no cure and until, there's no vaccine, the fear of the virus will always linger. But I guess it's really more of following precautionary measures, like in retail. So as long as you follow social distancing, you disinfect the store, you disinfect, like for example, we have alcohols. Before you enter the store, you have to have a temperature scan, and then you have to go through shoe bath and even wheel bath, no, in some of our in most of our stores, no. So for as long as you wear your mask, and then social distancing of at least 2 meters or physical distancing, I guess, yeah, that's really but it really saddens me. Like for 21 years old, can you imagine? Why not 18? Why not 17? Why is it 21? I think that's one of the questions I really don't have an answer to that.
Thank you, Ms. Cleo. Joey?
Yeah, we got another question from Sunny Dokay here. Are there opportunities for the retail industry and the housing sector amid the challenges brought about by COVID-19? What are your suggestions for the government and the private sector to go into synergy? So perhaps we start with the opportunities first for retail and housing, and how should the government intervene to help revive the retail sector also. Ms. Rose, would you like to start?
We all know that in every crisis, in every adversity, there's always opportunity. I think there's always opportunity for retail. There will be definitely accelerated shift in formats in the way we do business, and then probably the opportunity will be for us to reinvent ourselves, to evolve. Maybe we have to rethink of the assortment that we offer and focus more on what the market really wants and needs. I guess the opportunity there is really to connect with your market, to talk to them what they need from you and how you can serve them better. Find ways, how to accelerate all this, and of course, maybe we have to be more resilient on our sourcing, on where we get our products and our supply chain. There are challenges, of course, that China would or everybody was dependent, let's say, on one country. Cleo mentioned about Pinas Muna. I think the opportunity for some of the retail to rethink what their offerings can be. Maybe let's offer made in the Philippines. Let's say for apparels, instead of importing from other countries, sourcing from other countries, maybe we can offer what's made in the Philippines, and then maybe we can promote fabrics that are produced here in the Philippines. I guess these are some of the opportunities that we can look up into, like promote what's. I think that will really help the economy. Promote local, buy local, and patronize what's local.
Okay, thank you, Ms. Rose. Secretary, would you like to add something on the housing sector?
Actually, this it is an opportunity also, because we now come to realize that complementary efforts is what we need in the exercise of our function in achieving the national shelter program goals on regulations, finance, and production. We must complement so that we develop synergy and deliver more.
Okay. Tech, do we have other questions?
Now, I think I have a question here for Miss Cleo. Question is from Candice Taishete. What are the plans for attracting international travelers to the Philippines?
Well, I think it's been very great that we're hearing all these forecasts from the tourism industry experts that the Philippines will be one of the first few countries that are going to be able to recover immediately. While the restrictions are still out there, we need to be always present. That's why in our campaigns, in the little ways that we can, our DOT has been very strong in the campaigns to attract people coming to the Philippines. But now it's the Filipino people's chance to pitch in by being our marketing arms ourselves. Just a simple post of your Pinas Muna is going to go a long way. In an average, people have 1,000 friends on Facebook, and you promote your own country there. We enjoy the other countries a lot. But if we look at the beautiful destinations that we have here in the Philippines, it creates just as much happiness. And that will help.
I have a question for Ms. Rose. Of course, Ms. Rose, we can't deny that we're seeing rising vacancies now in major malls across Metro Manila. In fact, for Colliers, we're projecting about 1 million square meters of new retail supply over the next 3 years. And with this COVID-19 pandemic, we're likely to see slower absorption of retail space, and some might even be vacated. What do your members from PRA say in terms of repurposing or converting the vacant spaces? Do we already have an idea of how are we going to repurpose or reuse the facilities, the retail spaces that might be vacated moving forward?
Actually, probably you're referring to the mall operators, no? But as far as, one good thing about this pandemic, we see that sense of caring for each other, that sense of, cooperation. We're very happy, that the top 3 mall operators, specifically the top 3, the biggest 3 mall operators, they really gave a reprieve to the rentals. They really gave a more relaxed, uh, rentals. In terms of the rental, because that's really the biggest part of the operating expense of retailers. So as much as possible, I think the malls are really working hard to cooperate, to collaborate with all the retail, the tenants. They want to preserve the space for retail. So we haven't really discussed yet on the conversion because it's up to the mall to decide on that. Because although some of our members are also shopping centers, but of course, I guess it's everybody's. I think objective is to preserve the retail space. In fact, they're very considerate now. Some gave 70% discount on the rental. Some they base it on the revenue, on the sales, and then some they're very really considerate in the sense that even if they don't operate, they don't have the confidence of operating, they won't be charged with interest, which never happened before prior to ECQ. They're very big in all of this that you have to open. If you don't open, you get penalized. But now, in this time of crisis, you see that sense of caring and the sensation for everybody. And of course, for us retailers, even if we're really, being hit, with all this, we want to preserve. We want to preserve the employees. We want to preserve the space. We want to preserve the business. That's why we haven't discussed yet on that, on how to, on the conversion aspect. But because the focus of everybody here now is really to survive, to bounce back, to recover. Yeah.
We now save the best question for last. So I think we're all, looking at recovery. We're all eager to know when the retail, hotel, housing sectors will recover. But from your own segments, from your own sectors, when do you really see, objectively, the recovery of your respective property sectors? Let me start with Ms. Rose.
Okay, not specific to our sector, home improvement, but basically the whole of retail. Like what I've mentioned, retail is dependent on consumption. So I guess it's we're all part of one ecosystem. I guess if consumption will only happen if money gets into the hands of people, and we look forward to the stimulus package. We look forward to construction, it's a multiplier effect. Once construction will be allowed already, private construction, now they're allowing infrastructure, public construction. And then once it will definitely stimulate the economy, once everything gets into the hands, of people will definitely spend, even during the 2 months confinement, everybody was really excited to buy. People are really buying online. Me, my first time really, because I'm very traditional, I still want to visit the store. I still want that, having that all senses whenever you shop. But my first time to try shopping for some non-essential products, so people will find way. I guess it's a call for every retailer to accelerate whatever ways they can, find to accelerate, beef up digital, beef up whatever innovation, evolution that they need to do in order to be relevant to the consumer.
Ms. Cleo?
I wish it was easy to answer that question, Joey, but that's really the question, the hard prayer that everyone in the tourism sector really has. It's so hard to predict, and there's a lot of dependencies for us. We know that throughout the year, we're not going to have the international travel ban lifted. There will be a lot of security measures also for individual countries. So we know that that's not happening this year. But for the balance of the year, there's still some faint light for the hospitality industry and the whole tourism industry as a whole as we ease up our quarantine measures. It's for the Filipinos to travel domestically. And with that, I think there's a whole lot of support already while we wait for the bigger scheme of recovery. which is global.
So I think it's domestic first before international, right? Secretary Del Rosario?
Well, in housing, the key is to trigger housing construction. If we have housing construction in basically nationwide, we trigger the supply chain to move also. And imagine the employment that it would generate with about 2 to 3 million workers, including our brokers and sales agents. So the key here is to focus our efforts to help our both in the government and the private sector to trigger and start the construction on site of all these projects. Joey and Tech and Mom Rose and Cleo for the opportunity to be with you in this webinar. I would like to assure all the stakeholders in the housing sector and the Filipino people that the Department of Human Settlements and Urban Development will do everything possible to reinvigorate the industry. We will continue to focus on stakeholders' engagement as a key strategy to confront the challenges of COVID-19 and rise together. We are here to serve and never to restrict them. In fact, since June 1 to date, 300 housing developers with 50,000 housing units to be constructed, 300,000 housing units to be constructed with 50,000 workers were already tapped to undertake the construction of these 300,000 housing units. So we at the Department of Human Settlements and Urban Development consider home ownership as a right of every Filipino. And it is our responsibility to assist all our stakeholders in the housing sector to deliver in the process and make a positive difference into the lives of every Filipino family through house ownership. Again, thank you very much.
All right. Thank you so much, Secretary Del Rosario. For our next closing remark, Ms. Rose.
Yes, as I've said, we're just waiting for the economy to really open. I mean, in terms of construction, in terms of, the assistance that we can get from the government so that it will stimulate consumption, it will stimulate retail. So I think it's a call for everybody now to really focus on how we can serve our customer based on the demands. Right now, people are looking for different ways to be served, whether online, whether brick and mortar. What's important is we know and we communicate well. If you're brick and mortar, we have to follow and abide by the new protocol, the new normal wherein social distancing is very, is key, and also make our experience that we provide to our customer, build that confidence that it's safe to shop, it's safe to go to the mall, it's safe to shop at Wilcon, and it's safe for all the employees as well. So I guess as long as there's no vaccine yet, and still the fear is there, I think it's really more on building that confidence that this thing will pass. And we are on the road to recovery. We're just waiting for the time that things get back to I don't want to say it's new normal, but I would say it's a better normal for everyone, because we see that whatever happened during the pandemic, during the confinement, it really opened up our minds and our, priorities. What are your priorities? And it's really going back to basics, no? So we see a lot of cooperation, other caring for each other. These are the traits, the values that we learned in this pandemic. And as I've said, given that the Filipinos are very resilient, all, hope for the best. And I just wish that we can, go back to the better normal. And as I said, this will pass, let us heal as one. And of course, I'd like to share Wilcon's hashtag, we will conquer. Yeah. Thank you.
Right. Thank you so much, Ms. Rose. And for our last speaker, Ms. Cleo.
Thank you so much, Philippine Daily Inquirer and Inquirer.net for this opportunity to tag Joey and the moderators and our hosts. This has been a very good platform. Earlier on, we were able to discuss through the lens of the business owner, through the lens of the operators on the tourism front. But allow me to close by addressing our 5.4 million employees of the tourism industry. And that's just within the Philippines and the millions more of the Filipinos who are also working abroad in the tourism industry sector. So we are hard pressed on both sides, but not crushed. We are persecuted, but not abandoned. We are struck down, but not destroyed. Definitely, there's big hope for us. Thank you.
Hey, thank you so much for that, Miss Cleo. And of course, from our moderators, let's start off first with Joey.
Thanks, Pat. I think for all these three segments, retail, housing, as well as hotel, there's one characteristic that binds them, and this is the pent-up demand that we are all raring to tap once the market recovers. And at Colliers International Philippines, we always say that if market sentiments improve second half of 2020, then we're likely to see this pent-up demand, this recovery starting first quarter of 2021. And we're still optimistic. I mean, it's more fun in the Philippines still applies even to domestic tourism, and we hope that that really props up the domestic tourism and the local hotels, even the homegrown brands. In retail, we always say that mall operators and retailers, shops should innovate, otherwise they will just evaporate. And for housing, we're still optimistic that once the market conditions improve, there will be this pent-up demand that we have been seeing, for example, in Metro Manila since the start of 2016. So overall, we're likely to see a U-shaped recovery for the Philippine economy, and we hope that these segments, retail, hotel, and housing, will tread that growth trajectory that we will see starting early 2021.
Hey, thank you so much for that, Joey. Now for, of course, the last closing remark will be done by the Inquirer Property Editor, Tech Samaniego. Tech.
Thanks, Pat. First off, I would like to thank everyone who continuously supported us in this endeavor. From our sponsors to our panelists, our co-moderators, and all our partners. Since our first webinar, you have listened and shared with us your time. I would also like to take this opportunity to invite everyone to continue reading the property section of the Philippine Daily Inquirer. Through our articles and features, we hope to be able to effectively tell the story of the industry and keep the Filipino nation fully informed. Now, for our viewers, stakeholders, and leaders. The unprecedented event, while maybe challenging and quite difficult, shouldn't stop us from continuously believing that as a resilient nation, we will all bounce back. The pillars of the property sector, after all, are part of the new normal's so-called essentials, from housing to retail and even leisure. With our passionate and determined leaders, the right formula, goal to steadily enhance and improve the lives of the Filipino people, it won't be long before we see quality houses being built again, retail stores teeming with shoppers, and families and friends traveling again to see the beauty of the Philippines. Again, let us continue to pray for our country and our people. Maraming salamat po and have a good day, everyone.
All right. Thank you so much for that very insightful closing remark, and of course from our speakers. And this wraps up our webinar today. Thank you once again to our panelists for sharing their time, insights, and expertise with us. Thank you to our sponsors, Ortigas Land and Medicard, to the Department of Human Settlements and Urban Development, Philippine Retailers Association, Wilcon Depot, Megaworld Hotels, Inquirer.net, Inquirer Property, Icon Executive Asia, and Shoppertainment Live. Thank you once again for being part of Inclusive, the Inquirer webinar series presented by the Philippine Daily Inquirer and Icon Executive Asia. We definitely learn a lot from our subject matter experts. We'd also like to mention that the Philippine Daily Inquirer is offering a 30-day free trial of its digital edition, Inquirer Plus. As you can now see in your screens, we are flashing the QR code for you to get more details on how to avail of this exclusive offer. Again, the Philippine Daily Inquirer is offering a 30-day free trial of its digital edition, Inquirer Plus. On the screen, you would see the QR code. So take a snap of it right now and avail of this exclusive offer. So that's it for our inclusive webinar series. Thank you so much to our viewers, moderators, and of course to our subject matter experts. My name is Pat Soyo from Icon Executive Asia. Thanks for tuning in, and here's the last word from our sponsor.